This is piece 56. It's the Church of Sainte Foy. Notice that it is in 1050 to 1130. So it is in the Middle Ages, actually. It has 4 images associated with it. And so there's quite a bit to explain about this church. I love it myself. The context of it is that it exists along one of the 4 pilgrims routes through France that get you to this big pilgrim route to Saint James Jacques de Compostela. I don't know why I'm stumbling over it because I've done that pilgrimage route. I've been in Santiago de Compostela myself. So it was a big deal for pilgrims in the Middle Ages, people who wanted to get close to Christ, they and make it into heaven to be with God. They would go on a pilgrimage in order to, well, to strengthen their religious, spiritual life. And they would stop by Conques, this cathedral, excuse me, church, not cathedral, in France along their way. And so let me tell you about this piece, this statue that is in that church. This is a reliquary. A reliquary is something that holds a special item inside of it. Now, the special item inside of this is the skull of a 12-year-old girl. Saint Foy is that little girl. And in the 2nd century, during the time of the Roman Empire, she refused to worship pagan gods, and she was burned. And she became like a martyr because she refused to give up her worshiping of Christianity. So this statue was made of her, and in terms of a form, it is gold that I think covers wood. And pilgrims who have gone by this cathedral or church, they have left gifts for her, and that those gifts are these gems that you see that have been placed in that gold covering. The function of this piece is that pilgrims pray to her, and what they're doing is they're asking her to intercede for them in heaven. They want her to put in a good word for them. So the church where this reliquary stays is a Romanesque church. That's a new vocabulary word, Romanesque. And the kind of the form of a Romanesque church is that this time in history, you know, we could build huge coliseums, but building a building that people went into that had a roof over it, that's new. And this Romanesque church is thick. It has thick walls because it's hard to make thin walls and have it still stay standing and be this tall. So windows are small, tiny, because you have to take, you know, part of that stone out of the wall to make a big window, and then that can make the wall less stable. So tiny windows are all you get. So not much light. And then large towers on this piece that kind of are out of proportion for the size of the building. And towers would have been used at this time in history to look out for enemies. And then massive piers. Do you see these structures kind of going down? These are piers. You can see a lot on this side. They build those up to hold the building up. And we have rounded arches. All of the windows, all of these openings, and the opening here have rounded arches. The function of this, again, it's a pilgrim's church. Pilgrims would be walking along this route. They would get to this town, Conques, and they would head for the church. And then they would walk in these doors. And over the doors, as they're walking in, they would look up and they would see this carving in what we call this tympanum. It's like a pediment that was on the Greek temples. So this is a tympanum. Let's look closely at this tympanum. I want to point out 4 areas of it. It is a relief sculpture. You can see it's not really high relief, but overall it's really symmetrical. We could draw a line down here, down the middle, and it looks like it's pretty even on each side. In the center, though, let me tell you this piece. We have Jesus Christ. He is sitting on this throne, and behind him is a Mendorla, Mendorla. And that is a big halo. It's a halo that covers somebody's body. And he is doing this blessing. One hand up, one hand down. And I don't know if that blessing means, entrance to, I think it does. This side means you're going up to heaven. And this is the side where you go down to hell. So he's talking about what happens if you misbehave or if you're good. And so this right here is the kind of entrance to heaven, or it's the entrance to hell. So I'm going to talk more about that in another slide. And then look at this piece over here. I want to show you this one now, this circular right here. It's just over the house of heaven. See right there? You can see a little person. Here, I've blown it up for you. This is, we think, Saint Foy. And the idea is that she is showing reverence toward God. And here is the hand of God bringing her up into heaven. So she sets a great example. More content, I was saying, this is the entrance to heaven. Look at these guys. They're going into heaven. And this is St. Peter, I presume, greeting them into heaven. And here on this side, if you misbehave, now you're being clubbed by this demon figure from hell, and you're being pushed into the jaws of hell. Here you can see the feet of somebody going into hell. And here we think these are the 7 deadly sins represented in hell. Here is a medieval warrior with his warrior fighting gear on, his knight armor gear on. He's showing too much pride, so he's being prodded in the back. These two experiencing lust, they're being hung. Here's a man who's being lazy, slothful. Devil is standing on him. Judas, who betrayed Jesus, turned him over to the Romans for 40 shekels. He's being hung. This person committed slander. They said something not so nice about others, and their tongue is being cut out. Maybe this is envy. Here's a wealthy person who is being stripped of their clothes and their worldly goods. And this person is a glutton, so over-consuming, and they're being hung by their feet, I guess denied whatever could be consumed there. So the question is, how would you feel if you were a pilgrim and you entered this church and you looked up and you saw, here's what happens if you're good, here's what happens if you're bad. Then you would go inside, and inside this is the church and what it looks like. You can see rounded arches, and these are massive piers that hold the building up. And as a pilgrim, you'd walk in. Maybe you want to go to a church service, but you could also walk around. This is an ambulatory. You could walk around the church and not disturb what's going on. And this is a look of the inside. This is the look at the asp. And here is the altar of this church. Again, barrel arches, big piers that hold this very thick, heavy building up. And then to remind you about where this comes from, remember the Colosseum arches here, that these don't really hold the place up. But if you look at the side view, these are the barrel vaults that hold this place up. Rounded tops barrel vaults.